This is a demo and quick review of the Logic Pro X Compressor plugin. Now, if you're a user of Logic, you know that for a long time, Logic has had a built-in compressor plugin. However, in the latest version, it looks very different. You see that big meter and the different looking knobs, but most importantly, there's these new settings at the top that are essentially emulations of vintage style compressors. So if you toggle through, you'll see, for example, this looks kind of like a Focusrite style analog compressor. This one looks kind of like an 1176. This one to me gives a little bit of a SSL vibe, and each one has its own kind of unique characteristics in terms of how it looks. Now, the Platinum Digital, as far as I can tell, is the most like the previous version of the compressor. In fact, I think it might be the same thing. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to reset my distortion here, and I'm going to just show you what the compressor sounds like in its original settings. So first, on a vocal turned off and then turned on. Promises may bend and promises may break, and I don't really care if they're not true. And on. Promises may bend and promises may break, and I don't really care if they're not true. So it is a very clean and transparent compressor. I've always really liked it. Something else I've really liked is this distortion control. Actually, if I turn it especially to the soft setting, it just gives it a little bit of extra drive, a little extra warmth, almost like a tube emulation. It's almost not even distortion, and I kind of just like the effect it gives, especially in more of a rock, aggressive type music. So what I'll do now is I'm going to toggle through all of the different emulations at the top, and the reason is because I have found that it's not just cosmetic and visual, but there actually is a very dramatic difference in tone between the various different emulations. And so they can be useful for varying different purposes. So here's just a little sample of how each different compressor sounds. Promises may bend and promises may break, and I don't really care if they're not true. Promises may bend and promises may break, and I don't really care if they're not true. Promises may bend and promises may break, and I don't really care if they're not true. Promises may bend and promises may break, and I don't really care if they're not true. You might have noticed, to me, the vintage opto style, which I believe stands for an optical style compressor emulation, is kind of the most aggressive to me. It has maybe kind of the fullest sound to it. The Studio FET, sort of 1176 style, is a little bit warmer, a little smoother sounding compressor. Promises may bend and promises may break, and I don't really care if they're not true. Then I found that the vintage VCA is kind of a nice in-between. It's sort of transparent, but also has that little bit of coloration to it. Promises may bend and promises may break, and I don't really care if they're not true. So as you can tell, each different type of compressor setting might work better depending on what instrument and what type of song situation you are in. And I've even used many different types of compressors on different tracks within the same song. Now what I'll lastly do is give you a quick demo of acoustic guitar using the compressor. And again, I'll cycle through the various different settings so you can get a sense of how the compressor changes the tone as it's compressing using the different analog presets. Thanks for checking out the demo, and I'll talk more about specific compressor settings in a future video. For more, subscribe to my Mix Methods channel.